There is a kind of love that does not whisper or wait. It does not introduce itself gently. It arrives like a flame falling from nowhere. Sudden, undeniable, absolute. It burns through every structure you've built, every certainty you've clung to, every idea of who you thought you were. This is not the love that polishes poetry. This is the love that creates it. Rumi did not write about love to decorate life. He wrote because love was life. It was the raw energy in his veins, the breath between his words, the very reason his poetry still breathes 8 centuries later. He said that through love, bitter things become sweet, and copper turns to gold. But he was not theorizing. He was speaking from the alchemy that happened inside his own soul. Love, fierce, divine, unrelenting, melted the boundaries of his identity and forged something eternal in its place. Before there were verses, there was fire. And before the fire, there was Shams. In 1244, in the city of Konya, a wandering mystic appeared. No credentials, no wealth, just a presence so wild and luminous it shattered the world of a scholar, Shams of Tabriz. He didn't arrive to teach Rumi in the traditional sense. He arrived to break him open. Their first conversation, according to legend, began with a question so blasphemous it cracked the ceiling of safe belief. Who is greater, the Prophet Muhammad or Bayezid Bistami? It wasn't the answer that mattered. It was the shockwave. That question pierced the scholar and awakened the seeker. What happened between them was not mentorship. It was ignition, a sacred collision. Rumi wrote, "I am merely the house of your beloved, not the beloved herself." He knew. Love is not for the container, it's for the treasure inside. When he looked at Shams, he didn't see a man. He saw light through flesh. He said, "The moment I heard my first love story, I began searching for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. But this love wasn't personal, not really. Shams was a mirror, and in that mirror, Rumi saw the divine, not as theory, as presence. The beloved he had only studied in books now looked back at him through human eyes. Shams was scripture made flesh, and when he vanished, some say murdered, others say ascended, Rumi did not simply grieve a friend. He turned grief into gold. He wrote, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form." He understood. The true beloved had never left. What he had seen in Shams was only a reflection of what had always lived inside his own soul. That is what transformed him. That is what gave his words their pulse. He did not write of love as possession or desire. He wrote of love as annihilation. "This is love," he said, "to fly toward a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment. First, to let go of life. Finally, to take a step without feet." To Rumi, love was a fire that consumes everything that is false, not in despair, but so that only truth remains. Rumi did not romanticize love as something safe or soft. To him, real love was not something that added to your life. It was something that dismantled it. He did not seek comfort in love. He sought obliteration. He told his students, "Die before you die." And he meant it literally. The ego must dissolve. The false self must be pierced. Only through that breaking can the soul remember where it came from. He spoke of longing not as sorrow, but as sacred tension, a divine homesickness pulling the soul towards something it once knew and lost. This is why his poetry aches, why it trembles. He wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you. That pain, that void, is not evidence of absence. It is proof of the presence that is too vast for form." This is the paradox that pulses through every one of Rumi's verses. Even in absence, there is union. Even in loss, there is arrival. The longing itself is not a barrier. It's the doorway. The ache is not an interruption. It's the call. He saw no separation between the spiritual and the physical, between the inner world and the outer. He spoke in images, because images carried what logic could not. The moth drawn to the flame, the nightingale crying for the rose, the ocean calling back the drop. These were not metaphors for earthly love. These were symbols for the soul's journey into God. Every kind of love, romantic, platonic, ecstatic, grief-filled, was to Rumi a reflection of the same source. "I searched for God and found only myself," he wrote. "I searched for myself and found only God." For him, every feeling, every encounter, every heartbreak was a message from the beloved, a secret whisper sent to draw us back. He told us clearly, "What you seek is seeking you." The fact that we long is not a sign that we're lacking. It's a sign that we're near. The ache is the knock. The emptiness is the invitation. And love, real love, does not come to add. It comes to take away, to burn what is false, to leave only what is eternal. Shams was never the destination. He was the mirror that revealed the face Rumi had been seeking all along. And in that face, he saw not a man, not a mentor, but the very presence of the beloved, uncontained, nameless, infinite. The divine didn't thunder down from a distant sky. It looked back through human eyes, and once Rumi saw it, he could not unsee it. His entire life split open around that gaze, but he did not cling to Shams as a person. That would have been too small. He saw through him. He understood that love is not for the form. It is for what the form reveals. Just as the moon reflects the sun's light, but is not the sun, Shams was the surface onto which the infinite projected itself. When Shams disappeared, whether murdered by jealous hearts or swallowed into mystery, Rumi did not collapse. He turned inward. The flame was no longer across from him. It was within. And that realization became the turning point not just of his grief, but of his life. He wrote, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form." That wasn't consolation. It was truth. The true beloved never leaves because it was never outside of you to begin with. What you saw in another was a reflection of the light already flickering in your own depths. This is what gave Rumi's poetry its endless resonance. Not its form, not even its beauty, but its truth. He did not speak of love as desire or satisfaction. He spoke of love as extinction. To love is to vanish, to dissolve, to be undone. With life as short as a half-taken breath, he wrote, "Don't plant anything but love, because everything else, the fears, the names, the certainties, are dust. What survives is the connection. What endures is the surrender. What burns is the illusion, and what rises from the ashes is God." Longing to Rumi was not weakness. It was holy ache, a sacred pulse pulling the soul toward its origin. He did not try to escape the ache. He leaned into it. He listened to it, because in its quiet pain lived a deeper truth. The ache is not a sign of something missing. It is the echo of something eternal calling you back. He wrote, "There is a candle in your heart, ready to be kindled. There is a void in your soul, ready to be filled." That candle, that void, they are not mistakes. They are evidence. They are the fingerprints of the beloved on the inner walls of your being. The very fact that you feel emptiness means there is something real beyond the emptiness. Rumi didn't just describe this ache in abstract terms. He gave it shape. He made it sing. He painted it as the lover waiting at the threshold, the drunk staggering under the moonlight, the moth circling the flame it cannot resist. These aren't metaphors for worldly obsession. They are spiritual blueprints, archetypes of the soul's journey toward reunion, and in that journey, nothing is wasted. Even the ache is sacred. Even the absence is presence. The wound, he wrote, is the place where the light enters you, because it is precisely where we break that we become open. It is where the false shatters that truth slips in. This is why Rumi never asked us to run from pain. He asked us to let it burn, to let it break us open, to trust that the very longing which feels unbearable is in fact the doorway, that our sorrow is not in the way, it is the way. He didn't speak of union as something to be earned or bought or even fully understood. He spoke of it as something already within, waiting to be remembered, waiting for the veils to fall, waiting for the ego to dissolve, waiting for the heart to open wide enough to receive what was never gone. Rumi did not offer God as a theory. He didn't speak of the divine as an idea to be debated or a figure to be feared. He spoke of the beloved, not as distant, but as breath, not as a being above, but as a current moving through everything. He wrote of a nearness so total it became invisible. I am so close, he wrote. I may look distant, so completely mixed with you. I may appear separate. This was the paradox he returned to again and again. The more present the beloved becomes, the more our limited selves feel their own absence. The more love surrounds us, the more unbearable our distance feels. But this is not a flaw. This is the design. It is love that hurts because it is real, and that hurt is holy. Rumi's spiritual path was not built on certainty. It was built on surrender, on the willingness to let go of the illusion that we are in control. He did not teach us to seek God in rules or rituals alone, though he honored them. He taught us to find the divine in the quiet places, the unexpected places, the cracks in our defenses. There is a voice, he wrote, that doesn't use words. Listen. To him, longing was not a problem to solve. It was a sacred compass. He wrote not from detachment, but from burning, from dizziness, from the very center of spiritual intoxication. I am yours, he cried. Don't give myself back to me. This wasn't metaphor. This was lived reality. The ego shattered by the nearness of the infinite. He spoke often of the soul as a reed flute, cut from its source, crying out in song for the riverbank it once knew. And that sound, that ache, is not despair. It is the beginning of awakening. We cry because we remember. We long because we once belonged. And that longing is not the opposite of union. It is its first language. The beloved is not somewhere else. Rumi tells us, the beloved is within your very breath, behind your sorrow, beneath your silence, hidden in your hunger. The work is not to go out and find love. It is to clear the path for it. Your task is not to seek for love, he says, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Those barriers are not evil. They are fear, pride, shame, attachment, the crust of the false self that is hardened around the soul. And he doesn't tell us to break them with violence. He invites us to melt. Be like melting snow, he says. Wash yourself of yourself. It is not destruction he offers. It is release. It is soft, inward fire, the kind that purifies rather than punishes, the kind that removes everything that is not truly you, until only the light remains. This is not poetry as decoration. This is poetry as alchemy, as spiritual practice, as direct experience of the divine. Rumi wrote from inside the transformation. He didn't write about the fire. He was the fire. And the words he left are not meant to be admired. They are meant to burn you open. To Rumi, love was never the end goal. It was the road itself. Not something to arrive at after a lifetime of seeking, but something already present in the steps, in the ache, in the questions. The destination was never far off. It was always within, calling softly through longing, through silence, through mystery. Why do you stay in prison? He asks, when the door is so wide open. This path of love isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. It's not about accumulation, but peeling away, removing the layers of expectation, identity, and control until what remains is simple, raw, holy presence. He didn't ask us to become saints. He asked us to become real. And realness, for Rumi, was found not in perfection, but in vulnerability, in being undone before the beloved and allowing that unraveling to become prayer. This is why he used metaphors not as decorations, but as maps. The nightingale weeping for the rose, the wave crashing back into the ocean, the lover spinning in circles until thought disappears. These weren't poetic devices. They were expressions of the soul's spiral back to source. He wasn't describing romantic love. He was translating the human heart's hunger for God. He tells us that even the most ordinary experiences can become divine signals: the absence of a friend, the shiver of silence in an empty room, the moment you catch your breath and feel something larger moving inside your chest. These are not empty moments. They are messages. What you seek is seeking you. That longing you feel is not weakness. It is God knocking softly from the inside. In Rumi's universe, we are not waiting to be loved. We are learning to recognize the love that is already surrounding us, pulsing through us. The entire spiritual path, he says, is not about chasing something external, but about clearing the way within. And what blocks that love? Not fate, not sin, not distance, but the walls we build: ego, fear, doubt, shame. The beliefs that whisper, "You are not enough, you are too broken, you are too late." But Rumi doesn't shame us for our walls. He invites us to gently soften them. He does not command us to change with force. He asks us to melt, slowly, faithfully, to trust that the soul knows its way back if we would only stop clutching so tightly to what we think we are. In love, he wrote, there is no room for control, no room for certainty. The one who truly loves becomes dust, and in that dust becomes eternal. That's the paradox he lived in fully. By surrendering the self, you find the self. By losing everything, you gain what is indestructible. Love, to him, was not a transaction or a prize. It was a return, not to someone else, but to your own essence. You are not walking toward the beloved. You are walking as the beloved, learning to remember what you never truly forgot. There is a place beyond names, beyond roles, beyond right and wrong. Rumi called it the field. Not a field of grass or soil, but a state of being, where all the masks fall, where all the rules unravel, where only presence remains. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, he wrote, there is a field. I'll meet you there. This is not metaphor. It is instruction. It is map and invitation all at once. That field is not somewhere you reach with effort. It is somewhere you arrive by surrender. You cannot think your way into it. You can only fall. And Rumi's entire body of work is a soft, persistent push into that falling, into forgetting what divides us and remembering what holds us. This field is the space where the ego quiets and the heart starts to speak. It is the moment in a breath when you stop reaching for understanding and instead feel something deeper move through you. That stillness between thoughts, that shiver when music touches you without reason. That is the field. And it's already within you. But to enter it, Rumi warns, we must let go of the things we hold most tightly, the ideas we defend, the self-image we polish, the judgments we cling to like armor. The soul doesn't bloom in the soil of certainty. It blossoms in bewilderment. Sell your cleverness, he says, and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is defense. Bewilderment is surrender. It is the wide-eyed state of a soul waking up in the dark and realizing it was never alone. And this is what makes Rumi's mysticism so powerful. It is not abstract, it is bodily. It moves through image, breath, silence, ache. He doesn't tell you what God is. He tells you what it feels like when God touches your ribs from the inside. That moment when you fall apart and it feels like falling into truth. That's the field. In this space, pain is not something to avoid. It becomes sacred. Sorrow is not a flaw. It is a signal. The reed cries because it remembers the riverbank. We cry because our souls remember the field. And every tear, every longing, every restless moment is not failure. It is the field calling you home. Rumi doesn't want you to fix your life. He wants you to soften into it, to trust that the breaking open is not destruction, it's the doorway. To realize that even your confusion, even your doubt, even your grief, all of it can be holy if it leads you closer to the field. The wound is the place where the light enters you. He reminds us, in that field, even your pain is not separate from the divine. It is the divine, wearing the face of absence, whispering, "Remember me." Rumi did not preach silence from a mountaintop. He spun through city streets, arms outstretched, robe flaring like wind in cloth, not performing, but dissolving. His dance was not spectacle, it was surrender. The whirling of the dervish was never about performance. It was about unraveling, about becoming so empty that only the beloved remains. The dance began, not as ritual, but as instinct. One day, hearing the rhythmic hammer of a goldsmith's tools, something struck Rumi like thunder through bone. He stepped into the rhythm. He spun, and the world spun with him. This was not metaphor. It was transmission. A soul so full of God that it could no longer stand still. The dervish lifts one hand to the sky, the other to the earth. One receives, the other gives. And in the spinning, slow, deliberate, endless, the self disappears. The ego cannot survive in that turning. There is no center anymore except the beloved. The body becomes a prayer in motion. The feet kiss the ground over and over, and the heart, that trembling compass, aligns. This is not the mysticism of escape. This is the mysticism of embodiment, of becoming so inwardly still that movement itself becomes worship, of feeling that every cell in your being is a doorway, and spinning is the way you open it. Rumi's path was Sufi not in name, but in practice, not in theory, but in breath. Every gesture, every pause, every ache was part of his devotion. He didn't claim truth, he danced with it. He didn't define the beloved, he dissolved into him. He taught not by lecture, but by transformation. He became a living answer to the hunger that burns in every seeking soul. His whirling was only one form. Love was his true practice. He wrote poems in motion, dictated verses while walking, while weeping, while burning. His students could hardly write fast enough. His wisdom did not arrive through silence. It arrived through fire, through madness, through surrender. "Try to be a sheet of paper with nothing on it," he once wrote. "Be a spot of ground where nothing is growing, where something might be planted." And that something was always God. This is why the dervish turns, not to forget the world, but to pierce it, not to ascend beyond life, but to spiral inward until only light remains. The spinning is not chaos, it is order, not confusion, but clarity, a clarity beyond thought, a clarity that comes only when the self is gone. To whirl is to say, I am not the center. I am what moves around the center, and the center, the still, radiant, eternal center, is love. Always love. Rumi didn't just speak of fire, he walked through it. He didn't study transformation from afar. He burned, He shattered. He let himself be undone again and again until only truth remained. For him, suffering wasn't an obstacle. It was a furnace, a sacred space where everything false is scorched away, leaving only gold behind. He once wrote, "The cure for the pain is in the pain." This was not a comforting metaphor. It was a spiritual law. He believed the path to God was not outside of pain, but through the center of it. Because what we call pain is often the moment the soul is closest to awakening. The moment the ego finally softens. The moment something ancient in us remembers where we came from. And so, he did not ask his students to avoid discomfort. He asked them to welcome it, to bow to it, to see it not as punishment, but as purification. "If you are irritated by every rub," he said, "how will your mirror be polished? The rubbing, the grief, the loneliness, the ache of love unfulfilled, is the work. And the polishing? That is the soul learning to reflect the beloved. This fire, this ache, this friction is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to reveal you, to strip away what you are not, to burn the masks, to return you to your essence." And that essence, Rumi knew, was divine. He called this practice of burning not endurance, but love. Because what greater act of love is there than to be remade by longing? To let yourself be unmade in the arms of the invisible, trusting that what is taken will be returned as something more real. This was why Shams was so important. Shams did not comfort Rumi. He set him on fire. He became the mirror that revealed what lay beneath the scholar, beneath the teacher, beneath the man. And when Shams vanished, perhaps murdered, perhaps ascended, Rumi did not collapse. He transformed. He poured his grief into verse. He alchemized loss into wisdom. "Don't grieve," he wrote. "Anything you lose comes round in another form." That is the fire Rumi offers us. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of transmutation. And in that fire, we don't just find pain. We find purpose. We find the beloved reaching out through the flame. Rumi did not believe God lived only in temples or scriptures. For him, the divine was not found in separation. It shimmered in everything. Not above, but within. Not distant, but intimately near. He saw the sacred not just in prayer, but in breath. Not only in ritual, but in the rhythm of life itself. The marketplace, the kitchen, a stranger's glance, all could become gateways to God. He taught that the beloved hides in plain sight, in the cup of tea, in the aching silence after a conversation, in the way the wind bends the trees or the light hits the floor. To Rumi, there was no mundane. There was only the veil of perception, and once lifted, the whole world became holy. "Don't turn away," he wrote. "Keep looking at the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you." Even wounds, especially wounds, could become altars. Even sorrow could be scripture. Because for Rumi, nothing was wasted. Every moment, every emotion, every encounter was part of a cosmic language. The divine didn't only speak in revelations, it whispered in the everyday. He didn't just say, "Seek God." He said, "What you seek is seeking you." That means the very impulse to search, to long, to ache. It's not yours alone. It's the beloved stirring inside you, reaching for you as you reach for it. That moment you feel lost, that's the invitation. That instant you pause and wonder, that's the arrival. In his world, absence is not the absence of God. It is God knocking through mystery. This is why Rumi's poetry is filled with symbols from ordinary life: dust, bread, wine, reed, garden, flame. He never tried to escape the world to find holiness. He dove into it, and in doing so, he shattered the illusion that God is elsewhere. He revealed that here, this breath, this silence, this ache is the doorway. He wrote, "The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything you want, you already are." This is not metaphor. This is the core of his mystical vision. You are not a vessel waiting to be filled. You are the spring itself, the ocean in a drop, the flame already lit. For Rumi, spirituality was not separation. It was saturation, becoming so present, so surrendered, that you see the beloved's fingerprints on everything, on joy and grief, on laughter and pain, on loss and reunion. This is what makes his mysticism so radical. It refuses to separate God from life, and so the task is not to climb higher. The task is to sink deeper, to pay attention, to allow the ordinary to reveal its hidden face, to walk through the world not as a seeker of signs, but as one who knows. Every moment is a message. Every breath is the beloved speaking. Rumi never claimed to be the beloved. He said he was only the house in which the beloved lived. This wasn't humility. It was spiritual clarity. In the mystic's vision, true love is not for the form, but for the light behind the form. What he saw in Shams wasn't a man. It was God shining through a man. He didn't fall in love with the mirror, but with what the mirror reflected. And in that reflection, he recognized something older than memory, deeper than identity, his own face before he was born. This is the heart of his mysticism. We are not separate, not from the divine, not from each other. The beloved is not out there, hiding in the clouds or beyond some future. The beloved is here, behind your eyes, inside your chest, disguised as your own longing. He wrote, "Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along." What he's pointing to is not romance. It is oneness. You were never looking for God in another person. You were looking for the divine that your soul already carries. And the people we love deeply, those who awaken something sacred in us, are not saviors. They are reminders. They are mirrors. That's why Rumi spoke of Shams not as a guru or even as a teacher, but as a spark, a match to the candle he was already carrying. Their meeting was not a transfer of knowledge. It was a collision, a breaking open, a sacred fire that reduced all intellect to ash and revealed the gold that lay hidden beneath a lifetime of learning. "The moment I heard my first love story," Rumi wrote, "I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along." This is not sentimentality. It's a cosmic axiom. It means what you're seeking has always been within you, that you are not chasing something that doesn't exist. You are remembering something that never stopped existing. And so love becomes not possession, not fulfillment, not even desire. Love becomes revelation, a burning away of illusion, a mirror that shows you not who the other is, but who you really are when all the stories fall away. This is why Rumi didn't mourn Shams as a man. He transformed the loss into a deeper realization. The true beloved was never outside. What he saw in Shams was the face of God wearing human form. When the man vanished, the light remained, because it had never come from another. It had been his own soul's reflection all along, and this is what the mystic teaches. If you look long enough into the eyes of another with love, eventually you will see not them, not even yourself, but the one that moves through both, the face that has no name, the silence that breathes beneath all sound, the beloved. Rumi didn't see the soul as a thing to perfect. He saw it as a thing to remember. To him, you were never broken, only covered, only asleep. And the path was not towards something new, but back to what always was. He wrote, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." This is not poetic exaggeration. It is metaphysical truth. The soul, in his vision, is not a fragment of God. It is God remembering itself, and everything that seems like distance is illusion. Separation is a mask. Identity, belief, even longing itself, all are veils. And beneath every veil, there is only oneness. This is why Rumi's mysticism feels so intimate. He's not pointing at the stars. He's pointing at your breath. He doesn't ask you to believe. He asks you to listen, because within you is the rhythm of the divine. The same rhythm that turns galaxies also turns your heartbeat. And once you hear it, really hear it, you will know. There was never a wall between you and the beloved, only the idea of one. I searched for God and found only myself, he wrote. I searched for myself and found only God. That is the paradox of the mystic. The deeper in you go, the more you dissolve. And what remains isn't you, it's everything. The soul isn't an object within the body. The body is a brief shadow within the soul. This is why longing to Rumi is not emptiness. It is evidence. It is how the ocean calls the drop back home. The ache that lives in your chest is not weakness. It's memory. It's the echo of that place before time, before form, where we were not selves, but light. And even now, that ache pulls you, not forward, but inward. So the work is not to become spiritual. The work is to peel back everything that isn't, to drop the masks, to let go of the armor, to melt. Rumi says, be like melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself, because the you think you are is the veil, and the real you, the one that burns, that aches, that waits in silence, is the part that remembers the sea. This remembering is not passive. It is fire. It is surrender. It is the courage to say, I will not be defined by my name, my story, or my fear. I am what existed before language. I am what watches even my thoughts. I am the ocean that once believed it was a wave. And so when Rumi tells you to fall in love, he doesn't mean with another. He means with the truth, the one inside your ribcage, the one behind your eyes, the one that says, you have never been separate. You are what you've been seeking. You are the door. You are the one knocking. You are the one who answers. Rumi's path did not end in words. It ended in silence. After all the poems, the metaphors, the weeping verses of longing, what remained was not more language, but the stillness behind it. Because to him, silence was not the absence of sound. It was the presence of something too vast, too sacred to be held in syllables. He wrote, there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen, that voice was the beloved. For all his eloquence, Rumi never confused poetry with the truth itself. He used words as windows, as ropes lowered into the soul. But he knew that beyond a certain point, even the most beautiful language must be let go. Not because it has failed, but because it has fulfilled its purpose. The poem is the finger. The silence is the moon. He said, when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. That fullness, that unbearable, unspeakable fullness, is not just peace, it's presence. It's the final remembering, the moment when all seeking ends, not in answers, but in dissolution. When the drop dissolves into the sea and realizes it was never apart. To reach that silence, Rumi didn't retreat from life. He moved through it, burning away the veils until only truth remained. He danced, whirled, wept, prayed, taught, but in the center of it all, he listened. And what he heard was not sound. It was the divine pulse beneath everything. It was the stillness inside motion, the flame inside the reed. Silence, to him, wasn't emptiness. It was completion. It was the point where the ego falls away and the soul becomes so transparent that God moves through it without obstruction. He wasn't silent because he had nothing left to say. He was silent because nothing more needed to be said. In that silence, prayer happens without words, love without lovers, union without form. It's the kind of silence that doesn't make the world disappear. It makes it sacred. Suddenly, the rustling leaves are a scripture. The exhale of breath is a temple bell. The glance of a child, the grief of parting, the moment of awe, all become liturgy. This is the silence Rumi invites us into. Not a silence of avoidance, but of arrival. He says, "Don't speak so you can be heard. Speak so you can be." And then, stop speaking. Because the self you've been narrating was never the full story. The truth is not what you say. It's what remains when you stop saying. And what remains? Stillness, fire, light, the beloved. This is the final teacher. Not the poem, not the metaphor, but the quiet that follows. The place where even longing dissolves, where nothing is missing, where you are not the seeker. You are not even the finder. You are what always was. You are what cannot be named. And in that moment of stillness, you finally hear the beloved say, "Welcome home." The journey does not end in silence. It begins there. Because for Rumi, arrival was never a stopping point. It was a turning, a whirl, a return. The soul, once it remembers its source, doesn't rest. It spins, not in confusion but in celebration. Not to escape the world, but to embody it more fully. This is the dance Rumi left us with. Not choreography, not performance, but a cosmic gesture, to become so empty that only love moves you. He said, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?" That door is not somewhere else. It is this moment, this breath, this remembering that the divine is not an idea or a location. It is the pulse moving through all things. And once you feel that, you cannot go back to sleep. You whirl, not in circles of doubt, but in orbits of devotion. This is why the dervish spins. One hand open to the sky to receive, one hand lowered to the earth to give, heart at the center, feet moving, body vanishing, soul ablaze. It is not a symbol, it is the reality Rumi embodied. God within, God without. Self emptied, love eternal. He wrote, "With life as short as a half-taken breath, don't plant anything but love." That is the final instruction. That whatever time we're given, days or decades, must be spent turning toward what is real, not clinging to fear or status or control, not wasting energy on what separates, divides, distracts, but becoming a space through which the beloved can speak. To live like this is not easy. It means breaking, melting, losing the identity you spent years constructing. It means loving with no guarantee of return. It means seeing beauty where the world sees nothing. But for Rumi, this was not sacrifice. This was freedom. This was life. He didn't ask us to become like him. He asked us to become ourselves, fully, fearlessly, finally. He said, "You were born with wings. Why crawl through life?" That's not poetry. That's a mirror. That's a call to remember what you already are, not this name, this story, this weight, but light, free, eternal, and rooted in love. And so we end not with a conclusion, but with an opening. The poem is not over. The fire still burns. The beloved is still calling. Wherever you are, in doubt or clarity, in grief or joy, in stillness or motion, the door is open. The music is playing. The whirl has already begun. Close your eyes, let go, fall into it, stay there.